Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We welcome you once again on Wednesday nights with myself, Inayat Wadi, as we welcome you to the show this evening. And an issue that we need to talk about this evening is looking at cricket South Africa and with the Indian IPL franchises coming to South Africa. And we've heard about the auction that has taken place. But there are a number of issues that we'd like to raise. And this came to me early this morning from Yunus Suleiman, who highlighted the fact that the Indian cricket franchises, especially the IPL franchises that own a number of franchises here in South Africa, in other parts around the world, and in India. Now, this is to the exclusion of a country like Pakistan. And also at the same time, there has been a lot of discussion, a lot of debate regarding Themba Bavuma, the South African cricket captain. We know he is due to captain South Africa at the T20 World Cup that is due to play in Australia. Now, there are many rumblings as to why he has been excluded. So these are two issues that we need to talk about. But also generally, when one looks at the world of sport and one looks at sports enthusiasts right across the entire world, sports is huge. It's massive. It is a multi-billion-dollar industry, irrespective of what sport you are talking about or what code of sport you follow. And this is where the hypocrisy of world sporting bodies actually feature very, very prominently. When one looks at the power of the world sporting bodies, when one looks at the money that is involved, and also just looking at some of the examples, looking at an organization like FIFA, for instance. FIFA has control over governments. And we've seen it over and over again, especially when there is a world event that is taking place, like the Cricket World Cup, for instance. And recently, we've heard about Israel being allowed Israeli fans, rather, to be allowed in Qatar. Yet we find that Palestinian fans are actually struggling to even get out of Gaza. Now, that is just one example, and also looking at Europe, for instance, and why is Israel allowed to participate in Europe? We've seen what has happened with Russia and Ukraine. Russian teams are actually banned as a result of the Russian aggression or the Russian invasion against Ukraine. Now, all these issues are actually playing out, and here we are looking at South Africa. We've got our own cricket body. We've got Cricket South Africa as the governing body in South Africa. Yet we have IPL franchises coming out of India dictating to Cricket SA as to who can play and who can't play. And this is creating all the debate and all the discussion. Now, tonight we are joined by three guests. We've got Aslam Khota, who is a cricket commentator, well-known cricket commentator, I must say, also a sport documentary producer for SuperSport TV. We've got Lesego Pooe, a cricket broadcaster and correspondent, and we're also joined by Faisal Essop this evening. It's time now to welcome all our guests and to the show this evening. I see Faisal Essop is on screen already. And we're just waiting for both Aslam and Lesego to join us on the show. So while we are waiting, perhaps Faisal, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah khairan, Inayat.
Yes, obviously we know in South Africa that this is a cricket mad country. It is a cricket crazy country, and South Africans generally love their cricket. Yet, looking ahead at what is likely to take place, the T20, which is quite a big event for South Africa, and looking at the auctions that have taken place now. We know that there is a lot of discussion, there is a lot of controversy surrounding the non-bidding, for want of a better term, of the South African cricket captain, Themba Bavuma, but also at the same time looking at the power that these franchises actually hold in South Africa.
Alhamdulillah, South Africa is a sport crazy country, you can say. Yes, South Africans are very passionate about soccer, cricket, rugby, and people take them very seriously. So people are very involved in it also. So you know what's been happening with CSA? They've cut down the number of test matches, and they decided to invest in this Pro 20 tournament, which will be a huge cash injection for the game. That was the main target and aim. So looking at the way the cricket world is moving towards, you'll see a lot of these 20 over franchise tournaments, which has sprung all around the globe. Talk of the IPL, talk of the BB tournament in Australia, West Indies, and now we've got the 100 tournament. So the whole game of cricket is evolving. So in terms of this tournament, it was very welcome to have something of this nature, of the stature in South Africa. Obviously, money talks. And if you talk of the IPL, it's a body that the Indian Cricket Board is a body that controls the way cricket operates around the globe. And when you're talking of IPL, you're talking of millions of dollars. You can see the guys are bidding for. People become millionaires overnight. So a lot of guys will sacrifice playing for their country. And hands down, I mean, I've got to look at my future. Instead of playing for my country and like in my head, I look after my future. I get paid 8 million,
Yes.
6 million in one
Can I
shot.
just stop you there for a minute? I've just been informed that the other two guests have joined us. I just want to welcome them to the show. Then we can continue. I see, I believe Aslam Khota is with us. Aslam, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome.
Alaikum salam.
Aslam, I think I believe that you are having load shedding. We are having a slight problem hearing you. I just want to check if Lesego is online. Lesego Pooe, good evening to you and welcome.
Good evening, and thank you so much for having me.
Yes, we are still going to try and get hold of Aslam. I'm hoping we can get him on a better line. We have got Faisal Esop as well. Now, Lesego, welcome to the show. And I'm not too sure whether you heard my introduction, just looking at Cricket SA and where we are at this point in time. Now, there are two issues we'd like to actually focus on. One, obviously, is the whole issue surrounding Themba Bavuma, the South African, the Proteas captain. And we know that this has been a huge topic of debate as to why he was excluded, yet he is fit enough to lead the country at the T20 Cricket World Cup in Australia that is going to take place later in the year. Just your thoughts and looking at Cricket South Africa, and at the same time, the involvement. How involved is the Indian IPL in influencing certain decisions in the country?
Well, once again, thank you so much for having me. And yeah, I mean, especially when you speak about Themba Bavuma, there are some thoughts and opinions that I shared on social media, especially hearing about the fact that he was not one of the players that were part of was auctioned and missed out on an opportunity to be part of this FA20 tournament that's happening next year in South Africa in January. And I think it raised a lot of eyebrows, but it also got a lot of people asking a lot of questions. And for me, I think one thing that stood out the most is the fact that here we are, we have a South African captain, who's Themba Bavuma, who's leading the T20 team, heading into the World Cup in Australia. And he was unable to be one of the players that were chosen. And so the question was, is he not good enough to be part of this SA20? And why is it that these franchises were not able to see his value and be able to incorporate him in one of the teams? And as you speak about the fact that these are franchise teams that are coming from India and solidifying themselves here in SA cricket and building these franchises and building this tournament, but they can't see the value of Themba Bavuma. And one thing that I made mention was the fact that Themba Bavuma, if you cannot see him for maybe his batting ability, because oftentimes people speak about T20, you need to be able to strike quite high as a bat. And we know that he often plays that anchoring role at the top order. But if you can't see his ability for his batting, then you need to incorporate him in the side or either one of the teams for his captaincy, because we know for a fact that Themba Bavuma is an incredible leader on the field and off the field. That he should have had an opportunity to be able to come into one of the teams. So it raises a lot of eyebrows, It really questions why was he then placed a leader in the national team? Was he placed there on merit, or was it a completely different thing? So for me, I think that's the number one thing that just made me quite uncomfortable about what took place with the SA20 auction.
Well, thank you for that, Lesego, and I believe Aslam Khota is back with us. Aslam, assalamu alaikum once again.
Walaikum salam, Inayat. Thanks for inviting me as well.
Yes, Aslam, we are focusing on two issues, and you obviously, in fact, a giant when it comes to cricket in more ways than one, as a commentator, as a documentary producer for SuperSport, and you followed the game, I would say, for almost your entire life. And just looking at cricket generally, Aslam, we know that looking at cricket in general around the entire world, and we've heard of late about the power that Indian cricket actually holds with the rest of the entire world. When one looks at the BCCI, we look at its influence in the international cricket body, for instance, the largest financial backers as far as the ICC is concerned, 60 to 70%, some put it right up to 90%. And the same can be said about the IPL and its influence on world cricket, and also in countries like South Africa, where they bring their franchises into the country. We know that they take them to the West Indies, to the UAE. And just your thoughts on the power of Indian cricket.
Well, there's a few questions there already, Inayat. And maybe in order to break it down, the one thing I will say is that, yes, there has been a tremendous influence of Indian owners, franchise owners, spreading their wings, and South Africa's, apart from the UAE, which was always expected, has become the first country that has actually invited, the CSA invited these franchises, and they came through with open arms. So whilst there's a celebration that, yes, it's fantastic cash injection and everything else, I must tell you that if the global T20 took off in 2018, as it was being planned by Harun Lorgat, the money was going to be double. So this situation that we see CSA in is actually desperation on their part, because they would give anything to get that cash injection, because of the mismanagement and the misdemeanors that have occurred in CSA, like it has in most other SOEs and also organizations in the country. It has certainly put the game backwards. So that's the first thing. The other is, once they had announced that they were going to be owners of the franchises here in South Africa, the first announcement that came through, among the first few that came through, the official announcement was that they are not going to be dictated by the transformation policy. So that was one eyebrow to raise. And the other one was, of course, that in order not to have too many players in the setup, they, as you would see in the IPL, there's up to 22 players that they would field. Here, they've allowed 6 internationals per franchise. And the fact that there's only, I think, 16 or 17 that's allowed, it means that your numbers game in selection and choosing of players is now limited, curtailed. And those are perhaps the issues that have come to light. And that is why not just Themba Bavuma, there have been a few others. And I must say, in the early stages of the auction, it looked pretty ominous that we're not going to see too many of the players of color from South Africa actually getting a nod and getting a buy-in and being part of the auction. And happy to say that eventually there were a number that got through. So from a cricketing point of view, the explanation is very simple. As good as Themba and the fact that he's performed at domestic level and he's done well, he's been given the captaincy at international level, and it's not that he's come short there. His recent form obviously was not good, and he's now also having to recover from an injury. So Themba hasn't played for the last 4 months, and he decided that he's going to take an extra 6 to 8 weeks to make sure that the healing process was 100%, because he knows that the biggest responsibility for him now is to lead the team in a World Cup in Australia. So there are so many factors that come into the whole thing. The fact that they announced a few marquee players, it was very difficult to actually get Themba into this, because in general, really, when you look at him and you would place him amongst many other cricketers you'd probably say you don't rate him as a T20 player. So he's done well domestically. In my opinion, I did feel that whatever happened, somehow there had to be a good tactical or strategic move by CSA to make sure that whatever happens, it does make the whole situation look very ugly and perhaps even comical, in that the captain who's going to take you to the World Cup is not part of the 6 franchises. So it's just, I don't know, they were probably facing lots of pressure, because when making that announcement, it was quite interesting to me that there was no reaction from government level, because when it comes to those type of things, they really attack Cricket South Africa. They wanted a complete checklist. They have not done that. So my feeling is, and I may not be too far off the mark, Inayat, is that perhaps somebody in the sports portfolio committee or even in the sports department of the government were told that this is what's going to happen. And because it's almost a rescue mission, please watch out and do not get involved in this. Now that it has hit the headlines and we're seeing it on television and we're discussing it now, there may be some sort of a reaction, but I don't know if it's going to be healthy, because if you now take Themba into the setup, he'll be the first one to say thanks, but no thanks. And I'll just continue to get myself ready for the World Cup. There's just too much happening in it. And, as I said, you've asked so many questions. I hope that I've perhaps encapsulated some of what you said in this little opening remarks that you've allowed me to make.
Yes, Aslam, in fact, there's still a lot more that obviously we'd like to unpack. And we've got Faisal Essop, who is with us online as well. And Faisal, welcome back to the show. And Faisal, Aslam and both Lesego obviously have addressed this issue surrounding Themba Bavuma, but also right in my introduction, generally when one looks at sporting bodies and looking at world sporting bodies, and we see a lot of hypocrisy right across the entire world. I cited the example of FIFA, for instance, holding power over governments, because at the end of the day, it's all about money. We've spoken about the Champions League, for instance, where you've got a non-European side like Israel competing in Europe, yet Russian teams, as a result of what's playing out in Ukraine, Russian teams are not allowed to play. And looking at Indian franchises, one can actually put them in the same category as well. And we know that there was a lot of talk already up front about the exclusion of Pakistan. Now, we know these are the owners of these franchises, but can they dictate to a country, can they dictate to a cricketing body like Cricket South Africa as to who should be allowed into the country to play and who shouldn't?
You make a very important point there, that the BCCI controls cricket. I mean, they make decisions around the globe. So money talks. And if you look at the situation South African cricket was in, we needed a significant cash injection. I mean, they basically sacrificed their test schedule for these sort of tournaments. I mean, South Africa is getting about 27 to 28 tests versus 40 to 45. So I think they thought about it, and they definitely needed this cash injection. Now comes down to the South African cricket dynamics. We know that teams need to transform. But if you look at it, Rassi mentioned the point here of why isn't money being channeled into development? I mean, if you have to go around the country and look at these poorer areas, there's no proper cricket facilities. If you want to develop and grow a future generation of cricketers where, people are picked on merit, there's no need to have quotas, there's no need to have these BE policies. That's where the money is supposed to be going. And I think it's actually the root cause of the problem here. Now, what CSA has actually done is, we know with the World Cup, there is enforced quotas, whatever you're going to call it, people are there on merit. So, some people will say some aren't there on merit. So the World Cup squad has been selected. We have our captain that's there. Now, Themba Bavuma is a gentleman. You've seen his people's skills. Now you leave him out here, and now what happens is, when it comes to other cricket around the globe, they select purely on merit. And I'm going to use these words because this is the reality of South African cricket. So now it makes Themba Bavuma look uncomfortable. It makes CSE look like a laughing stock of the globe. Our Pro 20 captain for the World Cup is not even viewed as a Pro 20 player by a world governing body. And to put it bluntly, the guys that are selecting the IPL teams, they know they cricket. So I'm not putting Themba Bavuma down. He's a very respectable cricketer in his own right. Some people will ask, should he be there in the World Cup squad? Should he be captaining? Now these type of questions are brought about. And who's at the center of the whole controversy? Poor Themba Bavuma is in the middle. So I can't help but he's been used as a scapegoat. It's sort of been set up. Yes, we do require transformation, but it has to be done tactfully. I hope this is a very hard lesson for CSA going forward. Whether they're actually going to learn something from it, it's basically just showed us up in this instance here. When I posted something on Facebook saying that the base price of 850 they were overvalued, and I got torn apart, being called a racist, and I was talking facts, and you could see it from the post. I think maybe perhaps he would have. Themba Bavuma needed to be selected. Even in Pelokwe or the other order, he needed to be selected. But perhaps if they were putting it at a lower base price, maybe 150,000, they would have gotten selected. But in terms of if you're comparing Pro 20 marksmen, like I would say, compare him to Tristan Stubbs and Janneman Malan, 850, you can't compare. Then a guy like Janneman Malan is not even in the World Cup squad, yet he's viewed in a high esteem by this IPL. And IPL, they've got money. It's changed the face of the game, the Pro 20 cricket. I don't know. It looks like the game is heading in this direction going forward. So yes, it's a brilliant cash injection. It's going to be competitive. It's just shown CSA with an egg in the face. So I hope things can change. But again, there's a long-term solution here. The funds have to be channeled in the correct direction. This is where we'll see. I mean, look at Rabada in the Giri. They're world-class players. They deserve to be there. You call it merit in inverted commas. We love to see them play because we feel they deserve. There's no even questioning the squad. But when you put a guy like Themba in the squad, people start questioning him. Why is he opening the batting? For example, are you going to go to the World Cup? You've got Lisa Hendricks who's bashed 450s in a row. You moving to number 3. Does he deserve to be moved to number 3 instead of Themba Bavuma? Where do you put the captain in the team? He can't go there and be as a 12 when he's got to be in the team. So, and you say what Pro 20 cricket, someone was talking of being an anchor. It doesn't need an anchor. It's a hit and bash game, basically. Anybody can win it on the day. No team is going to walk in there and just dominate for 20 overs. So I just can't help feeling that Themba Bavuma has been caught up in the middle here. Yes, we want him to thrive. I believe he's got significant ability, but it's got to be done in the correct way. And also, I'm going to say in the correct form of the game. I believe he's got significant value to add in the test arena. I think he's going to change things around. Some people might say 150 matches, whatever the case is. He's got a wonderful start to his 50-over career, but maybe in the 20 overs, he's been found wanting. And that being said, he can change his game. Look at Hashim Amla, how he changed his game and basically ended up, he actually scored 100 in the IPL, if I'm not mistaken. I hope Themba can do that also. But let's see. He's been injured. There's a few factors to play into consideration here. The focus is now the World Cup.
Obviously, Faisal, yes, we do understand that. But also, I think I'd like to bring Lesego into the discussion. Lesego, one thing I think that is fundamentally of concern is there is something wrong within the system that we operate. And looking at cricket in general and looking at how the sport has actually evolved, but also with regard to who is controlling the sport. And I think this is where we are talking about money and money talks. I mean, that is the most, I would say that is a cliche that is actually being used, money talks. But it's not all about money. It's about system. It's about fairness. And it's about also justice, which is extremely important, Lesego.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. I mean, especially when we talk about just franchise cricket and the direction that it's taking. It's taking over the world. It's all about the money now. And before it used to be about the passion and about the love. But the way that things have changed over the years, it has went the direction of whoever has the most money, wherever T20 tournaments are available, we go there. It's 100 now that has sprung up. We've got the IPL, and we know how the BCCI, we've been talking about this and how much power they have over cricket, not only in India, but we've seen in South Africa and all the other countries, cricket nations that exist. And so there's a lot of power that are in the hands of the BCCI. But as I've mentioned, franchise cricket is really taking over, and that's where the money is at. And it's funny that we're talking about this today. I had a conversation with Kagiso Rabada a couple of days ago, and I was having a chat with him for Lions cricket. And he was just speaking openly about the fact that that's where the money is at. And we're seeing a lot of international players that are playing for their nation retiring at a much earlier time because they understand that they don't have capacity to be able to play for their country and also have capacity to play for all these leagues that are springing all across the world. And so he was saying that he might even find himself retiring earlier than what he had anticipated because he doesn't have capacity to be able to play for the country and be able to play for all these leagues that exist across the world. So at the end of the day, you know for a fact that it's where the money is at. That's because at the end of the day, you know that these cricketers want to be able to put food on the table because cricket is especially when you're an international player, you know that you can only play for a certain period of time and you have to maximize the amount of years that you're given being an international player. But I also just want to make a point on Themba Bavuma. I can't help but think that if he had lowered his base price, and like one of your speakers has mentioned, that he might have had an opportunity to be picked, especially when we look at the fact that his strike rate is sitting at like 124. And if we look at Sarel Avria, in the first round, he went unpicked. But in the second round, because he lowered down his base price, that's when he was able to be picked. And so I think if maybe Themba Bavuma would have done that, maybe his agent would have said, no, I'm submitting a new base price, maybe he would have had an opportunity to be picked. But there's still, something fundamentally wrong with the fact that our captain was not included in this tournament, especially when we look at the fact that this is these are franchises that are led by the IPL. Themba Bavuma does not have place at the IPL when it's played in India, alongside players like Andile Petrokwayo. Black players have to be extremely talented, like Kagiso Rabada, in order for them to be seen. And if they're just decent players, unfortunately, they'll always be overlooked.
Well, certainly. And also, Aslam, from what Lesego is saying, and it's also important that a tournament of this nature, one actually wants to see the best of the best. And when we look at T20 cricket, without a shadow of doubt, when one looks at the Pakistani players, for instance, Mohammad Rizwan, Babar Azam, Shaheen Shah Afridi, these are top players. They are the best of the best. We've come out of a World Cup in the Emirates, Pakistan, India played each other. They played each other many times since then. The Asia Cup as well. And on and off the field, we see this great friendship and this wonderful relationship between the players of these two countries to the extent that they've even supported each other during the bad times. Virat Kohli was going through a bad patch and he welcomed the support that Babar Azam has given him and vice versa as well. But we see, these countries playing each other for the love of the game. But again, when one looks at politics and the politics of India and Pakistan featuring very, very prominently, how that has impacted on the IPL, on the franchise owners to the extent that, they don't want to risk any form of backlash in India. They don't want to risk any form of backlash coming through from their fans. And I'd just like your thoughts on, these developments that are playing out in the background of the field, Aslam.
I just start by saying that, and I don't know what happened, we got cut off there, so I haven't heard part of the interview and what Lesego had to say. But first of all, I'll just make this one comment, is that the IPL is not the best T20 competition in the world because it doesn't have Pakistan players in there. I think that should say enough. As far as the politics between the two countries go, I know, having followed cricket and watched cricket overseas, and even having some relationships with these players, that they have absolutely no issue with each other. It's the politics, and it's dirty politics. And it's actually gotten worse since the BJP have come in there. So that is the difficulty that world cricket does have. And you were mentioning earlier about, and so was, I think his name is Ismail.
Faisal.
The thing is, in this interview, we're handling so many issues. And Faisal, yeah, Faisal. Sorry about that, Faisal. We're just handling so many issues, or you're covering so many aspects to it, because there are so many issues that are bedeviling world sport. And I mean, just talk about the VI, the Arabian involvement in what they've done, and they've created mercenaries out of golfers, and that whole thing that has come through as well. It's all about money, and money is dirtier than politics, and we all know that. I sincerely feel that when it comes to cricket specifically, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Aslam.
Can you hear me? Okay. So I was just going to say, and just to finish the point, we're laboring the whole Bavuma issue. The bottom line is there's going to be no correction to it. And I said to you that it was right in the beginning where they needed to be strategic. They haven't played their cards properly. It seems to me that CSA have been dictated to. And I'm not going to say it in too loud words, but I'm going to mention it anyway, that sometimes what happens is you don't only see governments being bankrolled, you don't only see governments being bought over. And the famous term in South Africa is that have we been captured? And all of those aspects do come into it. The bottom line is this tournament has, as I said, out of desperation, they've grabbed it with both arms and both legs. And this is to bring South African cricket out of its financial quagmire. And I'm just hoping, and Mr. Wadi did raise a very important point, or Faisal did raise a very important point, that when it comes to Test match cricket, the ultimate of the game itself, if they are willing to sacrifice that, then you tell me what is the current state of play, where they've now got the tournament starting in January, and over and above that, the absence of some of the players. It is a big issue in South Africa, and that's why I say I think it was handled very badly. There wasn't any intelligence put to this, and so whatever backlash they do face now, I do believe CSA and all the guys who are involved are obviously going to look at this and realize it. Perhaps they were clever enough, or they had foresight that this will come through, but they're just digging their heels in, and they're not going to bother with what Lesego, myself, or even Faisal have to say.
Yes, Jazakallah for that, Aslam. Now, I just want to bring Faisal back into the discussion. Faisal, I think one critical issue is we know that there is a huge investment that is involved in the game. But be that it may, what the IPL franchises are saying is no one wants to hurt the sentiments of their fans back home. And the question is, what about the South African fan? What about, looking at South Africa, looking at the best interest of the South African fan? Or is it all about the IPL franchise owners and what happens back home in India?
Well, it appears that way. I think it certainly does appear that way in terms of just satisfying the Indian cricket fans at this point in time. I think that was poorly played out again. I can see government being very quiet about it, and I'm going to be very blunt here. I think somebody was paid out, and it's actually quite a side state. It's a quite sad state of affairs. Now, when people coming across, I see Opa Rampela was talking about it. Look, you can't dictate a transformation and quotas in a tournament of this nature, but it should have been done tactfully. I think you can't, at such a high level, at international level, CSA and generally our government bodies have been found wanting. There's always a lack of planning in an organization. There's a lack of vision up front. I mean, Themba Bavuma should have went in with a bait. He should have been advised about it. Put your base price lower. I mean, if Sarah Irwe got selected, Themba definitely needed to be in that squad. He needed to be there. And I don't think the South African fan in general was considered in this. We in the new South Africa, there has to be transformation. I put it in inverted commas in the correct way, I stress, but it wasn't played properly. And CSA always comes back and they're always sweeping from under the carpet, things under the carpet, and trying to fix things afterwards and correct the affairs. I just don't see why can't these things be done correctly. I mean, even from the selecting of the coaches to the captain. You go back a few years now, the way things have been handled. It looked like it's heading in the right direction, and it goes and crashes down again. And again, this sort of a tournament, it just made us look like clowns in the ending. CSA looked like a bunch of clowns. I'm gonna say I don't even think they've actually changed in terms of the leadership, in terms of the visionary for the future. But I think it is a serious wake-up call. And we love South Africa. We love sport. People are passionate about it. We want to see people successful. We want to see Themba successful. And maybe this is our time in the Pro 20 World Cup, and he can prove people wrong. It'll be lovely for us to win a tournament. And if we win it, he'll be picking up the trophy for us. So we've got a strong top 6 in the batting order. I don't know where Themba's going to fit in. I unfortunately don't know where, but I believe we've got the team to win it. So maybe we win it. He proves everybody wrong, and next year he's there and he's picked. But let's learn from our mistakes going forward.
Yes, and Lesego, also, when one looks at cricket's SA in general, and the buck would stop right at the top. Now, today, we've heard this comment come from Ompile Remela, talking about specifically about the snubbing of the T20 captain Themba Bavuma, and also he spoke about Andile, and talking about the auction, but also he mentioned that this is an indictment on the leadership of cricket SA. Made great strides as far as transformation goes in this country, transformation in sport, and even the Ministry of Sport has basically pushed for this in all codes of sport. And this clearly is going to set us back. Lesego, are you with us? I think we've lost Lesego for some reason or the other. Aslam, are you with us? Aslam, are you with us? No. Faisal, are you with us?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay, Faisal, I think we are battling to get both Aslam and Lesego. Hopefully, we will try and get them again. But just looking at how much responsibility Cricket SA must take for this debacle that is playing out.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of cash that's floating around here. The CSA is in a serious cash. They're experiencing significant cash problems, I would say, going forward. Look, we haven't hosted a lot of tournaments with COVID. That's why the tournament was there. I'm just very surprised that nobody in government actually passed a comment or anything about it as yet. I say now for somebody to come out from under the cloth and pass comments and everything, just cast us in a very negative light. With CSA going forward, they're going to have to get the ducks in a row. But it almost appears if anybody, it just seems like nobody wants to fix anything up. I think the right people need to lead the game. Need to be the correct executives appointed. I still say it needs a total cleanup. There was a cleanup which was done, but we need to think of the bigger picture in terms of what's going to happen with cricket in the country going forward. Are we going to carry on like this? And unfortunately, we've seen a backward trend for the last few years. So do we change that trajectory or do we continue in that route? Unfortunately, if transformation is not done correctly, I am all for transformation. I believe it must happen, but it has to be done in the correct way. If there's going to be investment of funds and they're not going to be channeled into the correct areas. I mean, if you go into an area like Proteas Glen, where's the cricket facilities? How do you develop these youngsters? How do you get them into the under 15, into the under 19, into club cricket, into provisional level? Our provisional system is absolutely weak with substandard players at the moment. So enforced quotas is not going to be the way. I believe things can change, but it's going to need the right direction. It's going to need the right guidance. It's going to need the right leadership. So again, you're going to have to get everybody involved. And as a unified South Africa, everybody's going to have to work together. I believe sports can set that. Look at rugby, how it was done. Perfect. I think that's Pro 20 World Cup. We can win it. We have a chance to win it. Maybe this can be something positive for us and it can lead to significant change. But it does require serious amendments and a metamorphosis in CSA's thinking pattern.
Yes, I see Aslam is back with us. Aslam, I've just got a message that has come up on my screen right now. In fact, what the listener is saying is the ICC is just a puppet hanging onto BCCI's money. Anyone trying to say otherwise is spreading lies. Remember the 2008 Monkeygate incident when the ICC decided to ban Harbhajan Singh for racial abuse. Then what happened? BCCI threatened to pull out of the series, and ICC doubled down like a little puppy. And that was only the beginning. Money is everything. Now, this is exactly the point that we are making with regard to the IPL franchises and the dominance that they hold over an organization like the CSA. Well, I think Aslam is, we've lost him once again. We have lost Lesego. Faisal, are you with us?
I'm still here.
Faisal, well, I think your line seems to be holding up the best. Unfortunately, with load shedding, and we must apologize to our listeners and our viewers that both Aslam and Lesego could not come live on video as a result of the bad signal, as a result of load shedding that they are experiencing. But Faisal, perhaps you'd like to comment on what this listener has actually sent us.
Sorry, can you just repeat that for me? In terms of ICC being a puppet.
Yes, in fact, talking about the ICC being a puppet hanging on to the BCCI's money, and anyone trying to say otherwise is spreading lies. There was a 2008 Monkeygate incident when the ICC decided to ban Harbhajan Singh for racial abuse. What happened? The BCCI threatened to pull out of the series. The ICC doubled down like a little puppy. So again, it's been the question of money, and I would say that looking at the IPL franchises and the power and the influence that they hold over CSA, exactly the same scenario playing out.
Yeah, the power they and control they have over world cricket. They call it the big three: the Australian Cricket Board, the English Cricket Board, and the BCCI. But from all of them, the BCCI holds the most power. You use an example of the Harbhajan Singh incident. And generally speaking, I mean, Indian players are favored across the globe. The way the Pakistan is very sad. I haven't touched this upon this here. We call cricket South Africa, the tournaments in South Africa, but we don't have the Pakistan players in there. I mean, again, we should be an open. What happens in terms of politics shouldn't affect the cricket field. So it would have been wonderful to have the Pakistan players here in this tournament, but again, the BCCI influence. And you're talking, I mean, look at the amount of money that's been thrown around in the IPL, for example. Players get rich overnight. So yes, money talks here, and it talks significantly here. Unfortunately, I just don't see things changing because Indian cricket doesn't have the heart, the cricket world at heart. Unfortunately, they've sidelined a lot of the countries like Sri Lanka, South Africa, unfortunately, New Zealand. And if you look at the number of matches that these other countries play, India, Australia, and England are dominant, and especially with the Indian Cricket Board. To think about this 10 years ago, something like this dominating cricket, a Pro 20 tournament, dominating over Test cricket was unfathomable. But if you look at it now, it's just the way the world is heading towards. And as you say, cricketers are cutting short their cricket careers just to join these 20 over tournaments. People have to look at their pockets and the futures in the ending. And the whole cricket dynamics, the game is changing, and it looks like it's heading towards Pro 20. In the end, you'll see less Test cricket being played. You'll see less 50 overs being played, and you're going to see a lot of. It's going to become like baseball, basically. I thought now in England is a 100-ball tournament, 6 over tournaments, 10 over tournaments. It's going to become pure entertainment in the ending. That's what, and it's going to be about generating revenue in the ending.
Exactly. And I think, when one looks at how cricket has evolved over a period of time, there was a time, for example, the West Indies had their periods of exceptional brilliance. When one looks at the great cricketers that were produced by the West Indies, the same can be said about countries like Pakistan, India, and also looking at, Australia as well, New Zealand. But what we find of late is countries like India, Australia, for example, New Zealand, even to an extent, pulling away from the others. And when one looks at what this actually does for the support base, what it actually does for fans right across the entire world, when we see this sort of dominance as a result of money, this speaks actually volumes, and also at the same time looking at the politics of cricket and the hold that organizations like the BCCI have over cricket, but also to the detriment and the fate of many other nations? Faisal?
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes, Faisal. I don't know whether you heard my question.
I heard. I'm thinking in terms of global cricket. If you look at something like soccer, it's one of the most. It's actually the biggest sport on the planet Earth. And cricket was trying to actually take it globally, where they were taking the game to like countries like Nepal and Canada and USA, even Netherlands, Scotland. These countries weren't heard of ever to play cricket. And then what happened with the World Cup was these started to change the dynamics. And instead of growing world cricket, it's actually led now to a decline in the interest in cricket. They're trying to grow cricket through a Pro 20 sort of system. It'll probably, you see, when you play in a sort of a Pro 20 tournament, it's more like, how can I say, it's a luck of the draw. Anybody can win. The test skill, the cricket skill that's required in a Pro 20 game is less than would apply in a test match. You always hear the test match is the ultimate. It's the epitome of a cricketer. That's where he's judged. That's where his cricket career will be based on how he finishes off. But that's now starting to fall away. It's no more about that. It's lost its prestige. It's about basically making money. And it's about basically making money. Even for the cricketer, he's more worried about his own self. So yes, world cricket has struggled with these tournaments. You'll see less growth in terms of cricket in the smaller countries in played. And I believe it's had a negative effect. But on the other hand, these Pro 20 tournaments can take cricket to a lot of these other smaller countries, and a lot of these other countries are starting to play these Pro 20 over tournaments. If you look at it from a overall cricket perspective, less where they should be getting exposure to like test matches and 50 overs. Remember before in like 1990s, 2000s when we grew up, there's only 50 overs and test matches. They were starting to give them focus. They were starting to give them exposure. But then in one of the World Cups, I think it was in 2012, they actually cut the number of test play nations down, one-day internationals. It was from 24 teams, 16 teams, they moved it to 8. So a lot of these smaller teams struggled in that process. Ireland, for example, they shown improvement and they didn't get exposure. Now with the Pro 20s, possibly it might create interest in them in these countries. They might start to play cricket, but at the Pro 20 level. So let me just get this clear. Pro 20 level is not a marker. It's not a benchmark to determine your cricket skill. It's basically a hit and bash game. It's not a true cricketer. So that's why you might find, even if South Africa wins the World Cup, they'll say, yes, they won a 20 over World Cup, but it's not the ultimate. We want to be number one in test matches. That's where I rather have South Africa number one in test matches and dominating in that format. I'm a proper cricket. You'll call me an old school cricketer, basically. Then dominating in a Pro 20 tournament. Yes, we win it. We'll be very happy. So be our first ICC trophy since 1998. How many times we have gone to the semi-finals and not won, but for me, it's just changed the dynamics of cricket. I wish these tournaments didn't come about at such a rapid rate. It's just changed the face of cricket totally.
Faisal, just a final question. Why isn't the media, and when one looks at sports journalists, not really giving the type of coverage regarding the issues that we have been talking about, whether we've been talking about the exclusion of Themba Bavuma? We've heard a few comments coming through here and there, and the same issue surrounding the exclusion of countries like Pakistan or players from Pakistan from the tournament. And I think Aslam made the statement about how associations or organizations like CSA are being captured by foreign IPL franchises.
Yeah, Uncle Aslam mentioned the fact that without the Pakistanis, you can never call the IPL the best, strongest tournament in the world. Remember, this is just one tournament out of now 50 tournaments around the globe. I mean, you've got a Pro 20 league in Bangladesh, in Pakistan, West Indies, all around the globe. So this is just one. The IPL has now gone to UAE. It's gone to quite a few countries. So yes, there's there's limited. What can the media say about the Pakistan? It's a political game. If you had to look, it stems from the Indian-Pakistani conflict at the moment. I don't know why. Unfortunately, Pakistani players will not be included. And the media is not gonna. If they're gonna make a big thing about it, they basically gonna go into another country. Say for some reason now, if somebody's gonna make a big issue of Themba Bavuma not being selected and bring Proteas in, it's simple for the IPL. For the Indian Cricket Board. You know what? To hell with South African cricket, to put it literally. Let's take this tournament to the UAE, for example. We don't have any of these issues to worry about, and we carry on with our game. So, as I said, I think somebody was paid here, with a lot of money being involved here, and everybody's very quiet all of a sudden about it. I mean, it would have sparked controversy if there were quotas and he wasn't selected, but it wasn't thought through correctly. And I feel for him. I feel for Themba because I think he should have been selected, but I think the base price should have been lower. And definitely not at 850,000 rand. And that's what, unfortunately, a lack of foresight from CSA again. So I think if I'm a media perspective, we just hope now this tournament will be entertaining. Let's hope it generates revenue for South African cricket. And the funds are used positively. And let's focus on the Pro 20 tournament that's about to envelop us in about 30 to 40 days' time. That's going to be exciting. We've got a very strong squad. And I think it's an opportunity. I say it's an opportunity because cricket, there's always opportunity. Such as in life, there's always opportunity. Let these guys perform. Let Themba go out there, perform, prove his critics wrong. He's going to get game time. He's the captain of the team. Some are saying he shouldn't even be there. And Dile Pelakuyo also wasn't selected. There was a hua about him not being selected. Okay, he's on the reserves, but he's going to get an opportunity. Let's go out there. Let your bet do the talking. Make runs. And then, then you'll get selected. And then even at the international level, prove yourself, make runs. Then no one's going to question your spot in the team or anything. So I think the onus is on them going forward to prove people wrong.
I'm just looking, before we let you go, I'm just looking at another comment that has come through saying that unfortunately, India is filled with negativity towards Pakistan. This negativity is being linked by many other countries due to them bowing down to the influence of Cricket India. No T20 tournaments are truly portrayed when there are no Pakistan cricketers involved. And you touched on that, and Aslam touched on that one cannot say that it is the best tournament in the world when we find the exclusion, and particularly in the case of Pakistan, where they have got some absolutely brilliant, they've got some great players, world number one, number two in the batting rankings in the T20 format. And at this point in time, obviously the best batsman in the world is Babar Azam. So one cannot obviously rank this tournament to be the best tournament in the world. Just, you mentioned UAE, and obviously the IPL franchises holding exactly the same power in the UAE, but yet it's ironic that the UAE was home to Pakistan cricket for a very, very long time when no matches were being played in Pakistan, Faisal.
Yeah, that's actually a very interesting point you make there. It stems, unfortunately, from politics. We know the situation with India, Pakistan. We know the situation with Muslims that are facing in India. Allah Ta'ala make it easy for them. There's a bigger... We even say the Indian Cricket Board, the Indian government is very close with the Jewish government, with the Israeli government. So all this is all linked up in the ending. Pakistan players have been sidelined. Muslims around the globe have been sidelined. Unfortunately, everybody keeps quiet about the Palestinian situation. I mean, look at the Palestinian situation. Nobody's talking about it. Our own Muslim countries are not talking about it. So why would they want to talk about an insignificant team like Pakistan? Unfortunately, this cricket could be used as a unification factor. If Shaheen Afridi had to be bowling to Virat Kohli in South Africa, wow. Babar Azam is playing and is facing one of the spinners of Indian cricket. It would be, wow, amazing. Pakistan's got some significant talent. So again, cricket is a sport in the end. It's just a game, but it can be a means of unification. Unfortunately, I don't know people have it in the capacity to look past it. I just hope going forward we have a tournament. I would have done it this way. This would have been a South African tournament. Everybody's welcome to play. It would have been so lovely seeing Virat Kohli and Babar Azam on the field holding hands, waving the flags together, petting each other on the
even playing this for the same team.
Exactly. It would have been amazing. But unfortunately, it's a lost opportunity again. But I hope somebody can start thinking positively and it can change the way things are done.
Well, Faisal, Jazakallah for that and for staying on and talking to us. Sadly, we lost Lesego and Aslam Khota early on as a result of load shedding. But for now, we thank you. We say Jazakallah for you taking your time out, talking to us this evening here on Wednesday nights with myself, Inayat Wadi, All the best to you, my brother. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Faisal Essop, cricket enthusiast, joining us this evening. And early on, we had Aslam Khota, we had Lesego Pooe with us, and sadly, we lost them as a result of the dreaded load shedding. But I'm certain we have covered a lot of ground on this particular issue. It has been quite a talking point in certain cricketing circles, and also it's looking at the South African government that speaks so highly about transformation in sport and transformation in almost every aspect of our lives here in the country, not issuing any statement, not taking a standpoint. And also Cricket South Africa needs to sit up. They need to take notice, because clearly they are in the spotlight as far as some of these decisions that have been taken. And once again, I want to thank Yunus Suleiman, actually, who highlighted this thing to me early this morning. And he actually was on some of the other media outlets. For instance, I think he was on Radio 702, he was on SAFM as well, where he actually highlighted this issue to these media houses, that you need to talk about these things. These are important aspects, and you need to cover this. Sadly, with mainstream media, they are very, very selective when it comes to certain issues. And hopefully, through Salam Media, this is where we would actually provide you with an alternative, and taking issues like these apart, breaking them down, dissecting them, and unpacking what the real issues are. And with that, I'm going to be signing off for this evening once again. It's been wonderful being in your company from myself and the team. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.